3 months after what became known as the Horizon Incident, Dr. Naomi Winters stood before the United Earth Defense Council, concluding her testimony. The Valthorians retreated, but make no mistake, they will return. Not just because we humiliated them, but because we represent something unprecedented in their experience, a species that doesn't fit their models of conquest. Fleet Admiral Hernandez leaned forward. Your report suggests they've conquered dozens of other species. What makes humans different? Most species they've encountered evolved toward specialization, Naomi explained. When faced with overwhelming force, their biological imperative is to preserve their species through submission. Humans evolved as adaptable generalists. When cornered, our instinct is to fight back creatively. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization had resulted not in peaceful exchange or even honorable defeat, but in something far more dangerous. They had become a target. Later that evening, Naomi stood on the observation deck of Earth Orbital Station Alpha, watching the stars. The same stars that now held the threat she had helped provoke. Having second thoughts? Devon asked, joining her at the viewport. Following their return, he had been promoted to Chief of Security for the new Zenith Threat Response Division, with Naomi as its scientific director. Not second thoughts, she replied, leaning into him as his arms slipped around her waist. Their relationship had blossomed in the aftermath of the crisis. Passion forged in danger, now deepening into something more profound. Just wondering what we've started. Intelligence Officer Tarkus, now promoted to Strategic Advisor to the Valthorian. High Command stood before the Empire's ruling council, concluding his presentation on the human threat. These humans represent a fundamental challenge to our conquest methodology, he explained. They do not respond according to any established pattern. When faced with superior force, they innovate rather than capitulate. Supreme Commander Zolter's expression remained impassive. You sound almost admiring, Advisor Tarkus. I am Analytical Supreme Commander. The evidence suggests we have encountered a species that requires a completely new approach. Our standard tactics will fail against them, as they already have. What do you propose? Asked one of the council members. Study, observation, understanding. Before we attempt another direct confrontation, we must comprehend how these humans think. Back on Earth, Naomi reviewed the data from the long-range sensors that had been deployed throughout the sector following the incident. There was evidence the Valthorians were regrouping, but also indications they were proceeding with unusual caution. They're studying us, she told Devon as they prepared for bed in their shared quarters. The domestic intimacy of the moment stood in stark contrast to the cosmic implications of their discussion. Just as we're studying them, Devon pulled her close, his fingers tracing patterns along her spine. So it's a waiting game? For now, she agreed, melting into his embrace. But we'll be ready when they make their move. Humanity now knows what's out there, and the Valthorians now know what they're dealing with. In his private chambers, Tarkus reviewed the psychological profile he had compiled on Dr. Naomi Winters. This human female had single-handedly changed the course of Valthorian expansion. Her creativity, her adaptability, her willingness to challenge overwhelming odds, these qualities both fascinated and disturbed him. If one human could accomplish this, what might their entire species be capable of? Throughout the galaxy, word of the Horizon Incident spread. Other species subjugated by the Valthorians began to whisper about the humans who had defied the Empire. Some dismissed it as rumor. Others dared to hope. On a dozen worlds, resistance movements stirred to life, inspired by stories of a small research vessel that had stood against a battle cruiser, and one. Naomi stood before a class of new recruits. To the Zenith Threat Response Division, looking at the eager faces before her. The universe has changed, she told them. For centuries, Humanity looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the answer, and it's more complicated than we ever imagined. She activated the holographic display, showing the known extent of Valthorian territory. They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. But neither will we underestimate them. The coming conflict will not be won through brute force. It will be won through understanding, adaptation, and the uniquely human ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. As the briefing concluded, Evan joined her at the podium. There, fingers intertwined, a small gesture that represented something profound, the human capacity for connection, even in the face of cosmic threats. Ready for whatever comes next? He asked. Naomi smiled, looking out at the new generation of defenders. They would lead together, always. After all, unpredictability is our specialty. Across the vast gulf of space, the Valthorian Empire and humanity prepared for their next encounter. Two species on a collision course, each adapting, each learning, each determined to prevail. But only one possessed the chaotic creativity that had allowed a single human woman to change the course of galactic history. And in that difference lay humanity's greatest hope and the Valthorian Empire's greatest fear. The Valthorian boarding party that breached the hydroponics lab found themselves face to face with senior botanist John Park, who stood calmly beside what appeared to be ordinary research specimens. "I wouldn't come any closer if I were you, Jim." Advised as the soldiers advanced. The lead Valthorian raised his weapon. "Surrender, human," John shrugged. "I tried to warn you." He pressed a button on his tablet, and the seemingly harmless plants erupted, releasing clouds of spores that adhered to the Valthorian's armor and began dissolving it on contact. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as the crew of scientists transformed their research into weapons of resistance. In the physics lab, gravitational pulse emitters became disruptive force fields. The medical bay's diagnostic tools were repurposed to emit frequencies that interfered with the Valthorians. Neural implants. In the auxiliary control room, Naomi monitored their progress, directing crew members through secure channels and continuing to wreak havoc on the ship's systems to confuse the invaders. "They're adapting," Devon observed, watching the security feeds. "Changing their tactics," Naomi nodded. "But not quickly enough. They're too reliant on their standard protocols. Look, they're still trying to establish control sections by section, even though we're not defending in any conventional way." Tarkus found himself increasingly fascinated by the humans' response. In his centuries of service to the Empire, he had studied dozens of species and their reactions to conquest. None had ever responded like this. "Commander," he reported to Jexus, "I believe we need to reevaluate our approach. The humans are displaying remarkable adaptability." Jexus slammed his fist against the command console. "They are primitive creatures. Their resistance is nothing more than the desperate thrashing of doomed prey." "With respect, Commander," Tarkus persisted, "their actions suggest otherwise. They are systematically countering our every move, using our own technological interfaces against us. This is not random resistance, it's calculated." In the narrow confines of a maintenance shaft, Naomi and Devon found themselves momentarily alone as they moved toward their next objective. The constant tension of the past hours had created an undercurrent between them that neither could ignore. "You're remarkable," Devon said suddenly, his voice low. "I've seen combat veterans with less composure under fire." Naomi paused, suddenly, aware of how close they were. "I'm terrified, actually. I'm just good at channeling fear into focus." "Either way," he said, reaching out to brush a smudge of dirt from her cheek, "it's impressive." The touch lingered, and for a moment, the ship, the invasion, everything fell away. Their eyes locked, and Naomi felt her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with danger. The moment shattered as the ship lurched violently. "Commander." Jexus had ordered his forces to start systematically destroying sections of the vessel to flush out the resistance. "They're getting desperate," Naomi said, the professional mask slipping back into place. "That means we're winning." They reached the engineering section, where Chief Engineer Harriet Wong had established a fortified position. Using the ship's power distribution network, she had created localized energy fields that the Valkyrian weapons couldn't penetrate. "About time you two showed up," Harriet greeted them. "I've been analyzing their tech while they've been trying to blast through my barriers. Their ship systems are based on crystalline computing, incredibly advanced, but also vulnerable to specific resonance frequencies." Naomi's eyes lit up. "If we could generate the right frequency, we could disrupt their entire command and control network," Harriet finished. "But we'd need access to their main vessel." Devin looked between the two women, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I think it's time we stop playing defense." Meanwhile, aboard the Valkyrian command ship, Admiral Vrex received Jexus's increasingly alarming reports with growing fury. "You mean to tell me," Vrex hissed, "that a single human research vessel is not only resisting, but actively countering a full boarding contingent? The situation is complicated," Jexus replied, his normally confident demeanor shaken. "These humans do not respond as expected. They are turning their own scientific equipment into weapons. They are using our control systems against us. They are unpredictable." In the background, Tarkus listened with growing interest. Unpredictable. Perhaps that was the key to understanding these humans. They operated outside the logical parameters that governed Valkyrian military doctrine, as if to prove the point. At that exact moment, all systems on both the human vessel and the Valkyrian ship briefly flickered as Naomi's team executed their boldest move yet. Psychological warfare. What? "Do you mean they've accessed our communication network?" Admiral Vrex demanded, his voice rising to a pitch that made the bridge officers flinch. Tarkus studied the data flowing across his terminal. "It appears the humans have not only defended against our intrusion, but have managed to establish a reverse connection. They are now broadcasting directly into our systems." As if on cue, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Dr. Naomi Winters. The human female looked directly into the camera, her expression remarkably composed for a member of an inferior species facing annihilation. "Admiral Vrex," she began, shocking the Valkyrian command staff with her knowledge of their leadership structure. "My name is Dr. Naomi Winters, xenobiologist of the Earth vessel Horizon Seeker. I thought at time we spoke directly." Vrex's facial ridges darkened with rage. "How dare you address me, human? Your insolence will only make your eventual subjugation more severe." Naomi's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I've been studying your species since you first approached our vessel. Your physiological responses, your tactical patterns, your hierarchical communication structures. Would you like to know what I've concluded?" Despite himself, Tarkus leaned forward, intrigued. "You're afraid," Naomi stated simply. "Not of us specifically. You outnumber and outgun us. You're afraid of what we represent. Unpredictability, adaptability, emotion-driven logic that doesn't follow your carefully structured algorithms of conquest." Throughout the Valkyrian vessel, crew members paused in their duties, listening to this human who spoke with such confident authority. "Your entire empire is built on predictability," Naomi continued. "Species that surrender when overwhelmed. Tactics that work, because they always have. But humans evolve differently. When we're cornered, we don't surrender, we innovate." In the background of her transmission, the Valthorians could see other humans working calmly, purposefully, seemingly unconcerned by the massive warship that held their tiny vessel captive. "Even now," Naomi said, "you're analyzing this conversation, trying to determine my objective. Is this a distraction? A negotiation attempt? Psychological warfare? You can't decide," And that uncertainty, that's what terrifies your kind. Aboard the Horizon Seeker, Devon stood just off camera, watching Naomi with undisguised admiration. The plan was working perfectly. While she kept the Valkyrian command distracted, Harriet and her engineering team were using the open communication channel to infiltrate deeper into the alien ship systems. "You have 1 hour to release our vessel and withdraw," Naomi concluded. "After that, we will be forced to demonstrate exactly how creative humans can become when our survival is threatened." The transmission cut off, leaving the Valkyrian command bridge in stunned silence. "An empty threat," Jaxus declared, though his voice lacked conviction. "They are bluffing." Tarkus wasn't so certain. "Admiral, I believe we should consider silence." Vrex roared, "I will not be threatened by primitives. Prepare to destroy their vessel. We will make an example of them." As the Valthorians prepared their weapons, Naomi and her team implemented the final phase of their plan. Using the ship's scientific equipment, they generated a specific resonance frequency that targeted the crystalline computing architecture of the Valthorian systems. In the cramped confines of the communications hub, the tension of imminent either victory or destruction drew Naomi and Devon together again. This time, there was no hesitation. His hands framed her face as he pulled her into a fierce kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't in that moment: admiration, desire, the intensity of connection forged in crisis. "Just in case this doesn't work," he murmured against her lips. Naomi's smile was both tender and determined. "It'll work, and then we'll have plenty of time to explore ... whatever this is." The resonance pulse deployed, spreading through the open communication channels and into the Valthorian ship systems. Throughout the massive vessel, crystalline components began to vibrate, then crack. Systems failed in cascading sequence, leaving the mighty warship temporarily crippled. Tarkus watched in fascination as the impossible unfolded before him. These humans, with their inferior technology and limited resources, had effectively neutralized a Valthorian battlecruiser. Not through superior firepower, but through understanding and exploiting weaknesses no one had ever thought to defend. Against in that moment, he understood something profound and disturbing. The Valthorian Empire, for all its might, had never encountered a truly worthy adversary until now. Dr. Naomi Winters adjusted the calibration on her microscope, studying the bacterial culture with intense concentration. The soft hum of the Horizon Seeker's engines provided a soothing backdrop to her work in the research vessel's state-of-the-art laboratory. "Dr. Winters," the ship's AI announced, interrupting her focus. "Captain Monroe requests her presence on the bridge immediately." Naomi sighed, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "Tell him I'm in the middle of a time-sensitive analysis." The captain emphasized immediately, "Doctor. Priority Alpha." That got her attention. In 3 years aboard the Horizon Seeker, exploring the outer reaches of known space, she'd never heard a Priority Alpha call. Something was very wrong. When she reached the bridge, the tension was palpable. Captain Monroe stood rigid before the main view screen, his weathered face unnaturally pale. "Dr. Winters," he acknowledged without turning. "We have a situation." The view screen displayed a massive vessel that seemed to dwarf their research ship. Its design was unlike anything in human records, all sharp angles and gleaming obsidian, surfaces that somehow absorbed rather than reflected the distant starlight. "First contact?" Naomi whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her apprehension. "Not exactly," replied Security Officer Devin Rhodes from his station. His dark eyes never left the tactical display. "They've been broadcasting for 20 minutes. Universal Translator is still processing, but the message seems clear enough. They want us to surrender," Captain Monroe stated flatly. "They're calling themselves the Valthorian Empire. Apparently, We've entered their sovereign territory. Naomi frowned. That's impossible. All our charts indicate this sector is unclaimed. Their charts disagree, Monroe replied grimly. And they have the bigger guns. The ship suddenly shuddered, caught in what sensors identified as a tractor beam. Alarm klaxons wailed as the Horizon Seeker was inexorably pulled toward the alien vessel. Options? Monroe demanded. Engines at maximum reverse thrust aren't breaking us free, the pilot reported. Weapon systems. Sir, we're a research vessel. Our defensive capabilities are minimal at best. Naomi's mind raced. Captain, before you do anything drastic, let me speak with them. I'm the senior xenobiologist. First contact scenarios are literally my specialty. Monroe hesitated, then nodded. Make it quick, Doctor. On the command channel, Naomi spoke with calm precision. Valtherian vessel, this is Dr. Naomi Winters of the Earth Science Vessel Horizon Seeker. We are a peaceful research mission, and we're unaware of any territorial claims in this sector. We request dialogue and peaceful resolution. The response came almost immediately, a deep, resonant voice that somehow conveyed disdain, despite the translator's flat delivery. Human vessel, this is Commander Jexus of the Valtherian Empire. Your ignorance of our territorial boundaries does not excuse your trespass. Your vessel and crew are now property of the Empire. Resistance is both futile and illogical. Naomi exchanged glances with Devon, whose hand had moved to his sidearm. Commander Jexus, she tried again. There seems to be a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Jexus interrupted. Your species is known to us. Primitive, emotional, inefficient. You will serve the Empire as all lesser species must. Prepare to be boarded. The transmission cut off abruptly. The bridge crew looked to Captain Monroe, whose jaw had set in a hard line. Everyone to emergency stations, he ordered. Security teams to all access points. Dr. Winters, head back to your lab and secure any sensitive research. Captain, Devon interjected. With all due respect, our security team consists of 6 officers. If these Valthorians are serious, then we'll be outgunned and outnumbered, Monroe finished. But I'll be damned if I hand over this ship and crew without showing them exactly what humans do when cornered. Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. As she hurried back to her lab, the ship shuddered again, harder this time. The Valthorians had them completely in their grasp. In her laboratory, Naomi quickly accessed the ship's database, downloading everything she could find about Valtherian physiology, psychology, and technology, which amounted to frustratingly little. Just rumors and second-hand accounts from distant trading outposts. As the first sounds of forced entry echoed through the ship, a plan began to form in her mind. If the Valthorians thought humans were primitive and predictable, they were about to learn a painful lesson in underestimating their prey. The tactician's gambit. The first explosion rocked the Horizon Seeker as Naomi frantically worked at her terminal. Through the lab's security feed, she watched armored Valthorians pour through the breach in the cargo bay tall, bipedal figures with iridescent skin that shimmered beneath their dark armor. Dr. Winters! Devon burst through the lab. Doors, phaser drawn. We need to move. They're advancing through Deck C. Just one more minute, Naomi replied, fingers flying across the interface. I think I've found something. The security feeds showed Captain Monroe and his bridge crew being surrounded, their hands raised in surrender. The Valthorians moved. With mechanical precision, their tactics textbook perfect to perfect. There, Naomi murmured. They're pattern-based. Look at their formations, their communication protocols. It's all algorithmic. Devon glanced at the screen. Great observation, but how does that help us when they're about to overrun the ship? Naomi smiled grimly. Because algorithms can be disrupted. Help me gather these supplies. Minutes later, They were crawling through the maintenance ducts that ran throughout the ship. Naomi had converted her lab coat into a makeshift satchel filled with chemical compounds and portable research equipment. "The environmental controls are in Junction 47, she whispered. "If I can access them, I can. Introduce a gaseous compound that should disorient their sensory processing. Their physiology suggests highly sensitive olfactory systems." Devon raised an eyebrow. "You got all that from a few glimpses of them?" "I'm a quick study," she replied, trying not to notice how close they were in the narrow duct, or how his protective stance made her feel strangely secure despite the chaos. They reached the junction just as Commander Jexus's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "Attention, human crew. You are now subjects of the Valtherian Empire. Surrender yourselves at designated collection points. Resistance will result in neurosensory punishment." Naomi connected her portable analyzer to the environmental controls. "Let's show them some human resistance," she muttered, mixing chemicals in a small flask. The first phase of her plan worked better than expected. The colorless, odorless compound she introduced caused immediate disorientation among the Valtherian boarding parties. Their movements became erratic, their previously perfect formations dissolving into chaos. "Now," she told Devon, "we need to get to the main server room. If I can access the ship's core systems, I can really throw them off balance." They moved quickly through the ship, avoiding Valtherian patrols. Along the way, they gathered other crew members who had managed to evade capture. In the server room, Naomi's fingers danced across the controls. "They've integrated their systems with ours to control the ship, but they didn't account for our backup protocols." She activated a series of commands, and suddenly the ship's gravity began to fluctuate in random patterns, normal in some sections, reversed in others, completely absent in several more. Through the security feeds, they watched Valtherian soldiers floating helplessly or being pinned to ceilings, their perfect formations now in complete disarray. "Incredible," Devon murmured, standing close behind her. His hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a gesture of admiration that sent an unexpected warmth through her. "This is just the beginning," Naomi replied, trying to ignore the flutter in her chest. "But we need more. We need to understand why they're here, what they really want." Intelligence Officer Tarkus of the Valtherian forces studied the tactical display with growing concern. What had begun as a routine acquisition was becoming something unprecedented. "Commander Jexus," he reported, "the humans are employing highly irregular tactics. They've weaponized the ship's environmental and gravitational systems." Jexus's facial ridges darkened with anger. "Impossible. Their technology is primitive. They cannot possibly understand our control interfaces." "Evidence suggests otherwise, Commander." Tarkus hesitated. "I believe we may have underestimated them." As if to emphasize his point, the lights throughout the ship began to pulse in a disorienting pattern, and the ship's communication system started broadcasting what the translator identified as heavy metal music at painful volumes. Back in the server room, Naomi caught Devon's eye, and despite everything, they shared a smile. For the first time since the Valthorians had appeared, they allowed themselves to feel something dangerous hope.